In a sport where youth and swagger reign supreme, 72-year-old Zeke Miles shuffled into Iron King's boxing gym like a relic from another era. The former legendary trainer, who once molded champions with calloused hands and fierce wisdom, was now met with dismissive glances and barely concealed smirks. When cocky rising star Rhys Jackson publicly ridiculed the old man for requesting a sparring match, the gym erupted in laughter, phones recording what they assumed would be an easy humiliation. None of them recognized the quiet dignity in Zeke's eyes, eyes that had witnessed both glory and tragedy, that had walked away from boxing after his son's death in the ring decades ago. As they mocked him, Zeke simply wrapped his hands with the methodical precision that once prepared fighters for world titles. They wanted a spectacle. What they would get instead was a lesson in respect that would silence the room and change the gym forever. Just before we get back to it, I'd love to know where you're watching from today, and if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow's special episode is one you definitely don't want to miss. The afternoon sun slanted through the dusty windows of Iron King's boxing gym, casting long shadows across the worn mat. Zeke Miles paused outside the entrance, his weathered hand gripping an old gym bag that had seen better decades. At 72, his movements were deliberate, unhurried, but there was nothing frail about the way he carried himself. He straightened his faded hoodie, adjusted his worn-down sneakers, and pushed open the door. The blast of noise hit him first. The rhythmic thwack of gloves against heavy bags, grunts of exertion, trainers barking instructions, and bass-heavy music pounding through speakers. Young men and women moved around the space with the confidence of those who belonged. Nobody looked twice at Zeke as he made his way toward the front desk. Behind the counter, Andre Thompson scrolled through his phone, barely glancing up when Zeke's shadow fell across him. Andre was in his mid-40s, with the hard physique of a former middleweight who hadn't let himself go. A gold chain with a glove pendant hung around his neck, the mark of the gym owner who wanted everyone to know it. "You lost, old man?" Andre asked, not bothering to hide his impatience. Zeke's voice was soft but clear. "Just here to watch." Andre gave him a dismissive once-over. $10 for spectators. He held out his hand, already looking past Zeke to the younger clients behind him. Zeke placed a crumpled $10 bill in Andre's palm without comment and moved deeper into the gym, finding a wooden bench in the corner. He set his bag down and sat, his eyes taking in everything. The technique of the fighters, the coaching styles, the equipment set up. He noticed loose bolts on the speed bags, improper wrapping techniques, and countless small details that would be invisible to anyone who hadn't spent a lifetime in the sport. Across the gym, Rhys Jackson bounced on his toes, his muscled frame glistening with sweat as he hammered a combination into the heavy bag. At 23, Rhys was Iron King's rising star. Fast hands, dynamic footwork, and a social media following that brought a steady stream of fans and new members to the gym. He paused between sets to take a selfie, flexing for his followers. "Yo, check this out," Rhys called to his training partner, nodding towards Zeke. "Grandpa's scoping out his comeback tour." The joke rippled through the nearby fighters, drawing snickers. Zeke didn't react, his eyes steady on a young woman working alone in the far corner. Maya Johnson moved with natural talent, but frustrated intensity. Each punch she threw was technically sound, but lacked something: connection, flow, certainty. At 24, she was one of the few women who trained seriously at Iron King's, her determination evident in the way she restarted the same combination over and over, never quite satisfied. The hours passed. Fighters came and went. Zeke remained, watching, taking mental notes as flashy but ineffective techniques were praised, while fundamentals were glossed over. When the crowd thinned in the early evening, he finally stood and stretched his back. Maya was still there, now, hitting the speed bag with diminishing returns, her timing increasingly off as fatigue set in. Zeke walked slowly toward the water fountain near her station. On his way back, he paused. "May I?" he asked quietly. Maya looked up, startled that someone was speaking to her, especially this elderly man she'd noticed sitting alone all afternoon. "What? Your stance," Zeke said. "Try widening your base and dropping your right shoulder half an inch." Maya hesitated, eyeing him uncertainly. The old man didn't look like a trainer. Not in those clothes, not with that ancient gym bag. But something in his calm certainty made her adjust her feet and lower her shoulder as suggested. She hit the bag again. The rhythm instantly improved, the rebounds coming back cleaner, more predictable. "That's—" she started, surprised. "Just physics," Zeke offered with a slight smile. "Been the same since they invented the wheel." Before Maya could respond, a voice cut through their exchange. "Hey, old-timer!" It was Andre, striding over with clear annoyance. "You don't work here. Don't mess with my clients or my equipment." Zeke had been adjusting the height of the speed bag platform slightly, noticing it had been set improperly. "My apologies," Zeke said, stepping back with a respectful nod. "Meant no harm." Andre's eyes narrowed. "You want to train, you pay for training. You want to watch, you stay on that bench." "Clear? Crystal," Zeke replied, his expression giving away nothing. As Andre walked away, Maya gave Zeke a quick, appreciative glance before returning to her workout, this time maintaining the adjusted stance. The gym began emptying as closing time approached. Staff started wiping down equipment and sweeping floors. Zeke approached Andre, who was counting the day's receipts. "Mind if I help clean up?" Andre barely looked at him. "Suit yourself," he said, assuming Zeke was simply looking for something to do or a way to ingratiate himself. Zeke moved methodically through the gym, wiping down equipment with the care of someone who respected both the tools and the craft they served. When the main floor cleared, he moved to a distant corner, set down his bag, and began to shadowbox. His transformation was immediate and startling. The careful, measured steps of the elderly man gave way to smooth, rhythmic movement. His hands weaved intricate patterns in the air, his footwork precise and economical. There was no wasted motion, no flashy gestures, just pure, distilled boxing technique refined by decades of practice. A young boy waiting for his father noticed first, his mouth falling open as he watched Zeke move like water. The child stood transfixed until his father called him away, breaking the spell. As the last lights were about to be turned off, Zeke gathered his bag and headed for the exit. He paused by Andre's office. "You ever let the old school step in for a round or two?" he asked quietly. Andre looked up, then called out, "Yo, Reese, old-timer here wants to know if he can get in the ring." Reese, who was zipping up his gym bag, turned with an incredulous expression that quickly morphed into amusement. "You serious?" he asked, a laugh bubbling up. "Like for real?" The handful of remaining gym members joined in the laughter. Some pulled out phones, anticipating a viral moment in the making. Zeke just smiled faintly, the corners of his eyes crinkling. He said nothing, merely nodded a good night and walked out into the evening darkness. Behind him, the laughter continued, but one pair of eyes followed him thoughtfully, Maya's, wondering what other secrets the old man might be carrying. The next morning, Zeke returned, paid his spectator fee, and resumed his place on the bench. The routine continued throughout the week, Zeke watching, occasionally helping with cleanup, mostly being ignored or treated as an oddity by the gym's regulars. Reese, however, had found new entertainment. He began filming himself, mimicking an elderly boxer hunching over, pretending to have back pain mid-punch, and shuffling around the ring with exaggerated slowness. "Today, on Boxing with Grandpa," he announced to his phone camera, "we're gonna learn how to hit the bag without breaking." A hip! His followers ate it up, the videos garnering thousands of likes. During these performances, Zeke remained expressionless, his eyes revealing nothing. But in quiet moments, when the gym was nearly empty, Maya began to notice him. She'd implemented his stance adjustment with remarkable results, and curiosity drew her to observe his solo, shadowboxing sessions from a distance. One evening, she approached him directly. "That thing you showed me last week," she said without preamble. "It worked." Zeke nodded. "Good fundamentals always do. Would you mind looking at my hook? Coach Miguel says I telegraph it." Zeke glanced around to ensure Andre wasn't nearby. "Show me!" Maya threw a left hook at half speed. Zeke watched, then demonstrated a subtle adjustment to her elbow angle and the timing of her weight transfer. "Don't load up so much," he advised. "The power's not in the muscle, it's in the sequence. Let your body weight do the work." Maya tried. Again, following his guidance, the punch came faster, cleaner. "Where'd you learn all this?" she asked. "Around," Zeke replied. Then, seeing her genuine interest, he added, "Boxing's been the same for centuries. The basics don't change, just get forgotten sometimes." Over the next few days, their exchanges became a subtle routine. Maya would work on her own, then find a moment to ask Zeke a specific question. His answers were always concise, practical, and immediately effective. During one such conversation, he told her, "Don't fight for them to notice. Fight so they can't ignore." The words stuck with Maya, replaying in her mind during her next sparring session with Tamara, a ranked fighter from a crosstown gym. Normally, Maya would tire by the third round, becoming defensive and predictable. This time, she incorporated Zeke's defensive drills, subtle head movement, better footwork, perfectly timed counters. Miguel Ramirez, the head coach and Andre's longtime friend, watched with growing interest as Maya not only survived the full session, but landed clean combinations in the final round. At 48, Miguel had seen enough boxing to recognize when something had changed. His eyes drifted to Zeke, sitting quietly in his usual corner, expression neutral, but attention clearly on Maya's performance. "Good work today," Miguel told Maya afterward, his voice carrying enough for Zeke to hear. "Something's different. Keep it up." Reese, who had been filming himself for a day in the life video, overheard the exchange and frowned slightly. Later, as Maya was gathering her gear, he approached her. "Saw you went the distance with Tamara," he said, his tone a mixture of respect and suspicion. "Where'd that come from?" Maya shrugged. "Just working harder." "Yeah? Or maybe taking advice from the crypt keeper over there?" Reese nodded towards Zeke. "What's it to you?" Maya challenged. "Nothing. Just saying might want to learn from winners, not some rando who probably got his boxing knowledge from watching Rocky on repeat." Maya's hands tightened around her bag straps. "You don't know anything about him?" "And you do?" Reese laughed. "What, he's secretly Muhammad Ali's best friend? Come on." "At least he's not spending half his training time taking selfies," Maya shot back, her temper flaring. Reese stepped closer, his voice dropping. "Watch yourself, Maya. Andre's got big plans for this gym, and they don't include charity cases or geriatric wannabes." Maya moved forward, fist clenching, but Zeke's quiet voice cut through the tension. "Not worth it," he said from a few feet away, his eyes steady on hers. "Save it for the ring." Reese smirked but backed off, returning to his entourage of followers. That evening, as the gym emptied, Miguel approached Zeke directly for the first time. "You boxed before?" he asked without preamble. Zeke nodded. "Some? Professional. In another life," Zeke replied. Miguel studied him. "You've been helping Maya." It wasn't a question, but Zeke answered anyway. "Small things. She's got natural talent." "She does," Miguel agreed. "But talent only goes so far without proper guidance." He paused. "Andre runs this place, but I oversee the training. You want to work with her officially, we can talk about it." Before Zeke could respond, Andre's voice boomed across the gym. "Miguel, need you in the office." Miguel sighed. "Think about it," he told Zeke, then walked away. The following day, Maya arrived early to find Reese tampering with her hand wraps, dousing them with water, and hiding them behind equipment, a juvenile prank meant to disrupt her training. Zeke, who had been helping the maintenance staff with a broken locker, witnessed the entire thing. As Reese turned to leave, Zeke stepped into his path. "Problem?" Reese asked, cocky smile in place. "Seems like it," Zeke replied calmly. "Those aren't yours." Reese's smile widened. "What are you gonna do? Shake your cane at me?" The gym had started to fill, several members watching the exchange with interest. Maya entered, immediately sensing the tension. "You got a lot of energy," Zeke said quietly. "Why not put it in the ring?" A hush fell over the nearby fighters. Reese's eyebrows shot up in surprise, then amusement. "You challenging me?" he asked incredulously. Zeke nodded once. 3 rounds, just to see if I still remember anything." By now, Andre had emerged from his office, drawn by the unusual silence in his normally boisterous gym. "What's going on?" he demanded. Reese turned, grinning broadly. "Gramps here wants to spar with me." Andre looked between them, momentary confusion giving way to calculating interest. "For real?" 3 rounds, Zeke repeated. "No headgear, just gloves and mouth guards." Andre burst out laughing. "You know what? Let's do it this Friday. We'll live stream it." He clapped Reese on the shoulder. "Might go viral when Reese knocks out Social Security." The gym erupted in excited chatter. Phones appeared, recording the moment. Maya pushed through the crowd. "To reach Zeke, are you crazy?" she whispered urgently. "He's half your age and in his prime." Zeke's eyes remained on Reese, who was already playing to the cameras, promising his followers the knockout of the century. "Age is just a number," Zeke said. "Pride is something else entirely." As the crowd dispersed, Miguel watched from the doorway of his office, his expression troubled. He retreated inside, pulling an old cardboard box from beneath his desk. Inside were stacks of boxing magazines from decades past. He began flipping through them methodically, a suspicion forming in his mind. An hour later, he froze, staring at a yellowed cover from 1982. There, standing behind a charismatic young champion, was a younger version of Zeke, intense, focused, commanding. The headline read, "The Mind Behind the Champ, Ezekiel Zeke Miles." Miguel sat back, the magazine, trembling slightly in his hands as the implications sank in. The old man wasn't just some former boxer. If this was the same Zeke Miles, they had a legend in their midst. One of the greatest trainers the sport had ever known, a man who had disappeared from the boxing world so completely that many assumed he was dead, and in 3 days he would step into the ring with Reese Jackson, Iron King's prized fighter, in front of a live streaming audience. Word of the upcoming sparring match spread through the boxing community like wildfire. Reese's social media followers tripled overnight as anticipation built. Most viewers tuned in expecting a comedy, the cocky young star versus the delusional old man. Few suspected they might be witnessing the resurrection of a ghost. Talia Wright wasn't most people. As a young sports journalist researching untold stories of boxing legends, she had developed an instinct for authenticity. When she stumbled across the same article Miguel had found, something clicked. She began digging deeper, pulling archives. From boxing's golden era, cross-referencing names and faces. Meanwhile, the atmosphere at Iron King's had transformed. Sides were forming, most rallying behind Reese with mockery and bets on how quickly the old man would fall, while a small contingent, including Maya, watched Zeke with growing curiosity and respect. The morning after the challenge, Maya cornered Zeke as he wrapped his hands for his solitary shadow boxing routine. "Why are you doing this?" she asked bluntly. "You don't need to prove anything to these people." Zeke continued rapping, the worn fabric moving through his fingers with practiced precision. "Sometimes silence gets too loud," he said finally, "and sometimes you need to remind the world what it forgot." "What did the world forget about you, Zeke?" Maya pressed. Instead of answering, Zeke reached into his bag and withdrew a small, plastic-covered photograph. It showed a younger Zeke standing between two boxers, one a charismatic, powerful-looking fighter in his prime, the other a younger man with Zeke's eyes and jawline. "Ray Lightning Barnes," Zeke said, pointing to the first fighter, undefeated when this was taken. 28 wins, 22 by knockout. Maya's eyes widened. "You trained Ray Barnes? The Ray Barnes?" "For 8 years, Zeke confirmed, from his first professional fight to his last." "And the other guy?" Zeke's expression softened with an old pain. "My son, Damien." Before Maya could ask more, Reese's entourage burst into the gym, music blaring. From portable speakers, Reese himself strutted in, wearing a T-shirt with a cartoon print of an elderly man knocked out on the canvas. The caption read, "Retirement Plan." "3 days, old-timer," Reese called out, playing to the phones recording him. "Hope your Medicare's all paid up." Zeke didn't acknowledge him, simply tucking the photo away and returning to his rapping. Maya, however, fixed Reese with a glare that could have melted steel. That afternoon, when the gym quieted during lunch break, Miguel approached Zeke, the magazine in hand. "It's you, isn't it?" he asked without preamble. "Ezekiel Miles, Ray Barnes's trainer, the strategist behind 7 world champions." Zeke glanced at the magazine, then back to Miguel. "That life ended with my boy." Miguel leaned closer. "What happened?" The whole boxing world wondered. "One day you're on top, next day, gone, vanished." "Some things can't be fixed by staying," Zeke replied, his voice carrying a finality that discouraged further questions. Later that day, Talia arrived at the gym, notepad in hand, press credentials displayed prominently. Andre immediately took notice, switching from disinterested gym owner to gracious host in seconds flat. "Talia Wright, Detroit Sports Network," she introduced herself. "I'm doing a piece on the history of Detroit boxing. Heard you've got someone interesting here." Andre's chest puffed up. "You mean Reese?" "Yeah, he's our rising star. Already got sponsors looking at him for—" "Actually," Talia interrupted, "I meant Ezekiel Miles." Andre's smile faltered. "The old guy? What about him?" "Just confirming it's the same Zeke Miles who trained Ray Barnes and 6 other champions in the 80s and early 90s, Talia replied, watching Andre's reaction carefully. "Wait, what?" Andre's confusion seemed genuine. "That can't be right. He's just some old-timer who's been hanging around." Nearby, Maya was close enough to overhear. She slipped away to find Miguel, who confirmed what she'd suspected since seeing the photograph. "It's him, all right," Miguel said quietly. "The man was a genius, had a way of reading fighters, their strengths, weaknesses, psychology, like nobody else. Fighters would come to him broken and leave champions. Then why is he here?" Maya asked. "Why now?" Miguel shook his head. "That's the mystery. He walked away after his son died in the ring. Nobody's heard from him in what, 20 years? And now he shows up here, challenges Reese." He trailed off, troubled by the implications, as word spread that the elderly man might actually be a legendary trainer. Andre's attitude shifted. Talia overheard him on the phone, excitedly telling someone about the promotional opportunity of a lifetime and how they could spin this into serious money. Meanwhile, Reese's online bravado had begun showing cracks. After watching old footage of Barnes that Talia had shared, he trained with unusual focus, his typical showboating subdued. One of his entourage caught him reviewing Zeke's shadowboxing. "Sessions recorded secretly on a phone. You worried about Grandpa?" the friend teased. "Nah," Reese said too quickly. "Just want to make sure I don't hurt him too bad. Bad optics, you know." But his increased training intensity told a different story. The day before the match, Zeke visited a small cemetery on the outskirts of town. The stone was simple: Damien Miles, beloved son, 1975-1998. Zeke laid down a pair of miniature boxing gloves and the photo Maya had seen. Tomorrow's not about winning, son, he said to the silent grave. It's about remembering who we were. When he returned to the gym that evening, he found it transformed. Professional lighting had been set up. A cameraman was testing angles. Andre was giving an interview to a local sports channel, positioning himself as the man who discovered Ezekiel Miles and brought him out of retirement. Always believed in giving legends their due, Andre was saying smoothly. When I recognized who he was, I knew the boxing world needed to see the master one more time. Zeke walked past without comment, heading to the locker room, where he found Maya waiting. They're turning this into a circus, she said, disgusted. Circuses still need performers, Zeke replied with a hint of a smile. How's your hook coming along? The abrupt change of subject caught Maya off guard, but she recognized Zeke's desire to focus on what mattered. Better. Landed it clean on the heavy bag yesterday. Good. Remember what I told you about fighting for yourself, not them? Maya nodded. Tomorrow, Zeke continued, no matter what happens, you keep that in mind. Your path is just beginning. Don't let anyone else define it for you. There was a finality in his tone that troubled Maya, as if he were saying goodbye. Zeke, she began, but was interrupted by Reese entering the locker room. Surprisingly, he came alone. No entourage, no cameras. He stood awkwardly for a moment, looking between them. Can I talk to you? He asked Zeke. Alone? Maya hesitated, protective instincts flaring, but Zeke nodded for her to go. She left reluctantly, glancing back with concern. When they were alone, Reese's cocky facade crumbled slightly. Look, I've been watching footage of Ray Barnes. That was really you training him. Zeke nodded. Then why? Reese gestured vaguely at Zeke's modest appearance, the old gym bag, the worn clothes. Why all this? You could be making serious money as a trainer. Money doesn't heal everything, Zeke said simply. Reese shifted uncomfortably. About tomorrow. All that stuff online, the trash talk, it's just promotion, you know? No disrespect. Intended. Respect is earned in the ring, Zeke replied. Not before, not after. Reese seemed about to say more, then thought better of it. He nodded once and left, his bravado visibly diminished. The morning of the match arrived with unexpected media presence. What had started as a gym stunt had evolved into a legitimate boxing story, the return of a legendary trainer to the ring after decades of obscurity. Talia's preliminary article had gone viral overnight, drawing attention from sports networks beyond their local market. Andre was ecstatic, giving interviews left and right, positioning himself as the visionary who had orchestrated the whole thing. Miguel watched with growing disgust, eventually pulling Zeke aside. You know he's using you, right? Miguel said quietly. Whatever your reasons for doing this, just know that Andre's going to milk it for everything it's worth. Zeke nodded. Some lessons need an audience, he replied cryptically. By noon, the gym was packed. Temporary seating had been arranged around the ring. Phones were out, live streams already active. The energy was electric, a bizarre mix of mockery, curiosity, and for those who understood the significance of Zeke's identity, reverence. In the locker room, Zeke prepared methodically. He wrapped his hands with the same precision he'd shown decades earlier, preparing champions for title fights. His movements were unhurried, deliberate, focused. Maya found him there, sitting quietly on a bench, eyes closed in concentration. Everyone's talking about you out there, she said. They're saying you're going to embarrass yourself. Zeke opened his eyes, a calm certainty in them that steadied her nerves more than her own. The only person who can embarrass me is me, he said. And I made peace with my limitations a long time ago. Maya hesitated, then impulsively hugged him. Show them, she whispered. Show them all. As Zeke stepped out toward the ring, the crowd's reaction shifted from amused anticipation to something more complex. He moved with the quiet dignity of someone who had nothing to prove, yet everything to demonstrate. Those who had come expecting a sideshow suddenly sensed they might be witnessing something else entirely. Reese entered from the opposite side, his usual theatrical entrance subdued. He had opted for simple training gear rather than his customary flashy outfits. The look in his eyes was different too. Focused, respectful, perhaps even slightly apprehensive. As they met in the center for the referee's instructions, Reese extended his glove in a gesture of sportsmanship that surprised many of his followers. Zeke touched gloves in return, his expression betraying nothing of what would follow. "For 8 years," Zeke confirmed, "from his first professional fight to his last." "And the other guy?" Zeke's expression softened with an old pain. "My son, Damien." Before Maya could ask more, Reese's entourage burst into the gym, music blaring from portable speakers. Reese himself strutted in, wearing a t-shirt with a cartoon print of an elderly man knocked out on the canvas. The caption read, "Retirement Plan. 3 days, old-timer," Reese called out, playing to the phones recording him. "Hope your Medicare's all paid up." Zeke didn't acknowledge him, simply tucking the photo away and returning to his rapping. Maya, however, fixed Reese with a glare that could have melted steel. That afternoon, when the gym quieted during lunch break, Miguel approached Zeke, the magazine in hand. "It's you, isn't it?" he asked without preamble. Ezekiel Miles, Ray Barnes, trainer, the strategist behind 7 world champions. Zeke glanced at the magazine, then back to Miguel. "That life ended with my boy." Miguel leaned closer. "What happened?" The whole boxing world wondered. One day you're on top, next day, gone, vanished. "Some things can't be fixed by staying," Zeke replied, his voice carrying a finality that discouraged further questions. Later that day, Talia arrived at the gym, notepad in hand, press credentials displayed prominently. Andre immediately took notice, switching from disinterested gym owner to gracious host in seconds flat. "Talia Wright, Detroit Sports Network," she introduced herself. "I'm doing a piece on the history of Detroit boxing. Heard you've got someone interesting here." Andre's chest puffed up. "You mean Reese? Yeah, he's our rising star. Already got sponsors looking at him for—" "Actually," Talia interrupted, "I meant Ezekiel Miles." Andre's smile faltered. "The old guy. What about him?" "Just confirming it's the same Zeke Miles who trained Ray Barnes and 6 other champions in the 80s and early 90s, Talia replied, watching Andre's reaction carefully. "Wait, what?" Andre's confusion seemed genuine. "That can't be right. He's just some old-timer who's been hanging around." Nearby, Maya was close enough to overhear. She slipped away to find Miguel, who confirmed what she'd suspected since seeing the photograph. "It's him, all right," Miguel said quietly. "The man was a genius, had a way of reading fighters, their strengths, weaknesses, psychology, like nobody else. Fighters would come to him broken and leave champions." "Then why is he here?" Maya asked. "Why now?" Miguel shook his head. "That's the mystery. He walked away after his son died in the ring. Nobody's heard from him in, 20 years, and now he shows up here, challenges Reese." He trailed off, troubled by the implications. As word spread that the elderly man might actually be a legendary trainer, Andre's attitude shifted. Talia overheard him on the phone, excitedly telling someone about the promotional opportunity of a lifetime, and how they could spin this into serious money. Meanwhile, Reese's online bravado had begun showing cracks. After watching old footage of Barnes that Talia had shared, he trained with unusual focus, his typical showboating subdued. One of his entourage caught him reviewing Zeke's shadowboxing sessions recorded secretly on a phone. "You worried about Grandpa?" the friend teased. "Nah," Reese said too quickly. "Just want to make sure I don't hurt him too bad. Bad optics, you know." But his increased training intensity told a different story. The day before the match, Zeke visited a small cemetery on the outskirts of town. The stone was simple: Damian Miles, beloved son, 1975-1998. Zeke laid down a pair of miniature boxing gloves and the photo Maya had seen. "Tomorrow's not about winning, son," he said to the silent grave. "It's about remembering who we were." When he returned to the gym that evening, he found it transformed. Professional lighting had been set up. A cameraman was testing angles. Andre was giving an interview to a local sports channel, positioning himself as the man who discovered Ezekiel Miles and brought him out of retirement. "Always believed in giving legends their due," Andre was saying smoothly. "When I recognized who he was, I knew the boxing world needed to see the master one more time." Zeke walked past without comment, heading to the locker room where he found Maya waiting. "They're turning this into a circus," she said, disgusted. "Circuses still need performers," Zeke replied with a hint of a smile. "How's your hook coming along?" The abrupt change of subject caught Maya off guard, but she recognized Zeke's desire to focus on what mattered. "Better. Landed it clean on the heavy bag yesterday." "Good. Remember what I told you about fighting for yourself, not them?" Maya nodded. "Tomorrow," Zeke continued, "no matter what happens, you keep that in mind. Your path is just beginning. Don't let anyone else define it for you." There was a finality in his tone that troubled Maya, as if he were saying goodbye. "Zeke," she began, but was interrupted by Reese entering the locker room. Surprisingly, he came alone. No entourage, no cameras. He stood awkwardly for a moment, looking between them. "Can I talk to you?" he asked Zeke. "Alone?" Maya hesitated, protective instincts flaring, but Zeke nodded for her to go. She left reluctantly, glancing back with concern. When they were alone, Reese's cocky facade crumbled slightly. "Look, I've been watching footage of Ray Barnes. That was really you training him?" Zeke nodded. "Then why?" Reese gestured vaguely at Zeke's modest appearance, the old gym bag, the worn clothes. "Why all this? You could be making serious money as a trainer." "Money doesn't heal everything," Zeke said simply. Reese shifted uncomfortably. "About tomorrow, all that stuff online, the trash talk, it's just promotion, you know? No disrespect." "Intended. Respect is earned in the ring," Zeke replied. "Not before, not after." Reese seemed about to say more, then thought better of it. He nodded once and left, his bravado visibly diminished. The morning of the match arrived with unexpected media presence. What had started as a gym stunt had evolved into a legitimate boxing story, the return of a legendary trainer to the ring after decades of obscurity. Talia's preliminary article had gone viral overnight, drawing attention from sports networks beyond their local market. Andre was ecstatic, giving interviews left and right, positioning himself as the visionary who had orchestrated the whole thing. Miguel watched with growing disgust, eventually pulling Zeke aside. "You know he's using you, right?" Miguel said quietly. "Whatever your reasons for doing this, just know that Andre's going to milk it for everything it's worth." Zeke nodded. "Some lessons need an audience," he replied cryptically. By noon, the gym was packed. Temporary seating had been arranged around the ring. Phones were out, live streams already active. The energy was electric, a bizarre mix of mockery, curiosity, and for those who understood the significance of Zeke's identity, reverence. In the locker room, Zeke prepared methodically. He wrapped his hands with the same precision he'd shown decades earlier preparing champions for title fights. His movements were unhurried, deliberate, focused. Maya found him there, sitting quietly on a bench, eyes closed in concentration. "Everyone's talking about you out there," she said. "They're saying you're going to embarrass yourself." Zeke opened his eyes, a calm certainty in them that steadied her nerves more than her own. "The only person who can embarrass me is me," he said. "And I made peace with my limitations a long time ago." Maya hesitated, then impulsively hugged him. "Show them," she whispered. "Show them all." As Zeke stepped out toward the ring, the crowd's reaction shifted from amused anticipation to something more complex. He moved with the quiet dignity of someone who had nothing to prove, yet everything to demonstrate. Those who had come expecting a sideshow suddenly sensed they might be witnessing something else entirely. Reese entered from the opposite side, his usual theatrical entrance subdued. He had opted for simple training gear rather than his customary flashy outfits. The look in his eyes was different too, focused, respectful, perhaps even slightly apprehensive. As they met in the center for the referee's instructions, Reese extended his glove in a gesture of sportsmanship that surprised many of his followers. Zeke touched gloves in return, his expression betraying nothing of what would follow. "Then what was it about?" "Remembering," he said simply, "and maybe helping someone else remember too." Maya pulled out her phone, showing him footage from the match that had already accumulated hundreds of thousands of views overnight. The comments were a mixture of awe, apologies for underestimating him, and demands to know more about the old-school boxer who schooled the youngster. "You're famous now," she said with a hint of a smile. Zeke shook his head. "Fame fades. Skills don't." As they talked, Maya noticed Reese enter the gym, subdued and thoughtful. No entourage today, no phone recording his every move. He caught Maya's eye and gave a respectful nod before beginning his own training routine, more focused and deliberate than his usual flashy workout. Meanwhile, Miguel had been reviewing old VHS tapes stored in the gym's dusty archives. Footage collected over decades from various boxing matches and training sessions. Most were unmarked or labeled with faded handwriting. He'd been searching all night, driven by a hunch, after seeing Zeke in the ring. In the back of the storage room, he found what he was looking for, a tape simply marked Barnes' Final Session. He slid it into an ancient VCR and watched as grainy footage revealed Ray Barnes training intensely. In the background, barely visible but unmistakable, was Zeke, calling out instructions in the same measured tone he used with Maya. Miguel rewound the tape repeatedly, studying the techniques, the strategy, the unique training methods that had made Barnes nearly unbeatable. Then he reached for his phone and dialed Talia's number. "We've got a story," he said when she answered, "and it's bigger than we thought." While Miguel and Talia delved into the past, Maya continued her training under Zeke's quiet guidance. His methods were unorthodox by modern standards, focusing on fundamentals, energy conservation, and psychological warfare rather than pure power or speed. Each session built on the last, creating a comprehensive system that began transforming Maya's approach to fighting. "Boxing isn't about who hits hardest," Zeke told her during one session. "It's about who can implement their strategy while preventing their opponent from implementing theirs." As the week progressed, more experienced fighters began to gravitate toward Zeke, asking questions, seeking advice. Even Andre, initially dismissive, began mentioning Zeke's presence in promotional materials for the gym, capitalizing on the growing interest. One afternoon, Maya discovered a small memorial tucked into Zeke's gym bag. A worn newspaper clipping of Damien's obituary and a faded ribbon from an amateur championship. The personal shrine spoke volumes about the wound that had never fully healed. Later, while helping Zeke organize equipment, Maya found the courage to ask the question that had been troubling her. "Zeke, if it hurts so much to be around boxing, why come back at all?" Zeke paused, considering his answer carefully. "Sometimes the only way past the pain is through it. I avoided this world for 20 years. Didn't fix anything." He looked around the gym, his eyes settling on the young fighters training with determination. "Maybe there's still something here worth saving." The words hung in the air between them, carrying more weight than Maya could fully understand. That evening, Talia met Miguel at a quiet diner several blocks from the gym. They spread their research across the table, old articles, fight records, the FBI document, and stills from the VHS footage. It's all connected, Talia explained, excitement coloring her voice. Ray Barnes died shortly after turning down a series of suspicious exhibition matches. The same company that proposed those matches was partly owned by Clive Rocco, Andre's old partner when he started Iron Kings, Miguel finished, the implications dawning on him. You think Andre was involved in match fixing? I don't know yet, Talia admitted, but it's a hell of a coincidence that Zeke Miles would randomly walk into the gym, partly founded by the man potentially connected to his greatest fighter's death. Miguel sat back, processing. Does Zeke know? If he does, he hasn't said, Talia replied, but I'm planning to find out. Unknown to either of them, Andre sat in a booth on the far side of the diner, his expression darkening as he watched their animated conversation and caught glimpses of the materials spread between them. 3 days later, Iron King's boxing gym was transformed. What had started as a casual sparring match between an elderly man and a cocky young fighter had evolved into a proper boxing exhibition. Word had spread through social media and Talia's preliminary articles. Temporary bleachers surrounded the ring. A professional live-stream setup replaced the haphazard phone recordings from the previous match. The crowd was different too, not just the usual gym members and Reese's followers, but serious boxing fans, former fighters, and even a few scouts from professional promotions, all drawn by rumors that the legendary Ezekiel Miles was stepping back into the spotlight. In the locker room, Zeke prepared with methodical calm. No entourage, no trainer, just a solitary figure wrapping his own hands with practiced precision. Maya entered hesitantly, concern evident on her face. You don't have to do this, she said. You've already made your point. Zeke smiled faintly. Not quite. Some lessons take more than one session. Reese has been training differently since your last match, Maya warned. More focused, more serious. Good, Zeke nodded. Maybe he's finally learning something. Across the gym, Reese was indeed approaching this rematch with unprecedented seriousness. Gone were the theatrical preparations and social media posturing. Instead, he warmed up methodically, his expression focused and determined. Andre moved through the crowd, playing the gracious host, but his eyes frequently darted to Miguel and Talia, who sat together near the commentator's table. The tension between them was palpable, a subplot few in the audience could detect. As the fighters were called to the ring, a hush fell over the packed gym. Phones were raised, live streams activated. The energy was a complex mixture of anticipation, curiosity, and most surprisingly, respect. Reese entered first, his usual flashy entrance replaced by a businesslike approach. He acknowledged the crowd briefly before taking his corner. When Zeke appeared, the reaction was immediate. Murmurs of recognition from the older attendees, curious whispers from the younger ones. The referee called them to center ring for instructions. Reese met Zeke's eyes directly, nodding once in acknowledgement. The theatrical mockery of their first encounter had been replaced by professional respect. Clean fight, gentlemen, the referee reminded them. 3 rounds, back to your corners. The bell rang, and Reese opened with controlled aggression, testing Zeke's defenses with measured jabs rather than wild power shots. Zeke responded with subtle movement, shifting angles, creating distance, disrupting Reese's rhythm without expending unnecessary energy. He's not fighting, one spectator complained. He's just avoiding. A veteran boxer nearby shook his head. Watch closer. He's reading, gathering information, old school. Throughout the first round, Zeke remained defensive, absorbing Reese's increasingly frustrated attacks with minimal effort. As the bell rang, Reese returned to his corner, looking confused rather than confident. What's he doing? Andre demanded, from outside the ropes. He's making you look bad. Go after him. Reese shook his head. It's like punching fog. He's always a half step ahead. The second round began with Reese attempting to cut off the ring, forcing Zeke into the corners. For a moment it seemed to work, until Zeke slipped under a hook and pivoted away, leaving Reese punching air. "Come on, Grandpa," Reese taunted mid-round, frustration bleeding into his voice. "Show me that ancient kung fu." A flicker of something, perhaps amusement, crossed Zeke's face. He continued his defensive masterclass, occasionally landing light, precise counterpunches that seemed designed to instruct rather than damage. The crowd's energy shifted from excitement to fascination. They were witnessing something rare, not a slugfest between unequal opponents, but a live demonstration of boxing's deeper arts. As the second round neared its end, Reese launched a desperate flurry, determined to land something meaningful. Zeke weathered the storm, then, in a moment of perfect timing, stepped inside Reese's guard. The uppercut seemed to materialize from nowhere, a compact, perfect punch that traveled barely 6 inches but carried decades of knowledge. It connected with Reese's solar plexus with surgical precision. The impact wasn't visually spectacular, but its effect was immediate and dramatic. Reese's eyes widened in shock. His breath exploded from his lungs. His legs buckled as oxygen deserted him. He stumbled backward, gasping desperately for air, and collapsed to one knee. The room went silent. Phones lowered as spectators stared in disbelief. Even Miguel, who had suspected Zeke's true abilities, looked stunned by the precision and timing of the punch. The referee began a count, but it was academic. Reese had technically taken a knee, a knockdown by definition. But more importantly, the dynamic of the match had been irrevocably altered. The myth of the harmless old man had been shattered with a single perfect punch. As Reese struggled to his feet before the count of 8, Zeke simply stood in a neutral corner, his expression betraying nothing. No celebration, no showboating, just the calm focus of a craftsman who had demonstrated a fundamental principle. When the action resumed, Reese approached with newfound caution, respect evident in his measured movements. Zeke nodded almost imperceptibly, acknowledging the lesson learned. They finished the round in a technical exchange that showcased both fighters' skills without further drama. As the final bell rang, the audience erupted, not in mockery or surprise, but in genuine appreciation. They had come expecting a sideshow and witnessed a master class instead. Zeke didn't wait for the referee to raise anyone's hand. He simply removed his gloves, nodded to Reese with genuine respect, and exited the ring without fanfare. The gesture spoke volumes. This had never been about winning or losing. It had been about teaching, about remembering, about reclaiming something that had been lost. As Zeke made his way toward the locker room, the crowd parted before him, many reaching out to touch his shoulder or shake his hand. Veterans of the sport nodded in recognition of what they had witnessed. Younger fighters watched with new eyes, suddenly aware of the depth and subtlety of the art they were pursuing. Maya pushed through the crowd and embraced Zeke impulsively. "You did it," she whispered. "They remember now." Zeke's weathered face softened into a genuine smile. "I didn't want their memory," he said quietly. "I just wanted peace." As they spoke, Miguel approached with an old VHS tape in hand. "Zeke," he said with quiet urgency, "we need to talk about Ray Barnes, about what really happened." Zeke's expression shifted, a shadow of old pain crossing his features. "Some ghosts are better left undisturbed, Miguel." "Not these ones," Miguel insisted. "Not when they might still be haunting this gym." Before Zeke could respond, his phone buzzed with notifications. Online, the clip of his uppercut was already spreading like wildfire. Headlines were appearing. "Old man silences trash talker," and "The legend returns. Is Ezekiel Miles the real deal?" Across the gym, Andre watched the unfolding scene with calculating eyes, his phone pressed to his ear. "Yeah, it's confirmed," he said to the person on the other end. "It's really him, Ezekiel Miles. No, I don't think he knows about our connection yet. Yes, we need to contain this quickly." As Andre hung up, he caught sight of Talia filming the crowd's reaction to the match. Their eyes met briefly, his guarded, hers inquisitive. A silent acknowledgement passed between them. The story was far from over. In the center of it all, Zeke stood quietly, neither seeking nor avoiding attention. For the first time in decades, he was fully present in the world he had once defined and then abandoned. The weight of the past still hung heavy on his shoulders, but something had shifted. A door, long closed, had been cracked open, allowing light to illuminate shadows that had festered too long in darkness. The uppercut that had stunned the room had done more than silence doubt. It had announced that Ezekiel Miles was no longer a ghost from boxing's past. He was a force that would have to be reckoned with in its present and future. Morning light filtered through the grimy windows of Talia's small apartment, illuminating. Stacks of research materials spread across her dining table. Photos of Ray Barnes in his prime, newspaper clippings of championship bouts, printouts of FBI documents, and at the center, a legal pad filled with questions for Ezekiel Miles. When her doorbell rang, she was surprised to find Zeke himself standing there, looking slightly uncomfortable in the residential setting. "Didn't expect you to come to me," Talia said, inviting him in. "Some conversations are better had away from certain ears," Zeke replied, his eyes taking in the research materials. With a mixture of nostalgia and pain, they sat across from each other, 2 cups of coffee between them. Talia's recorder lay on the table, but she made no move to activate it, sensing that Zeke's openness depended on the human connection, not the journalistic one. "After yesterday, people are going to want the full story," she said gently. "Not just about the punch, but about you, where you've been, why you disappeared." Zeke nodded, running a weathered hand over his face. "I was nobody special at first. Just another young man back from Vietnam with too many nightmares and not enough direction. Boxing gave me discipline when I needed it most." As he spoke, Talia took notes, capturing the journey of a returning veteran who found purpose in the structured violence of the ring, how it channeled his demons into something productive, how he'd fought his way through the middleweight division with more heart than talent, eventually retiring with a respectable but unspectacular record. "The training came natural to me," Zeke continued. "Could always see what others were doing. Wrong, even when I couldn't fix it in myself. Started working corners, building a reputation for turning around struggling fighters." "Then Ray Barnes came along," Talia prompted. A ghost of a smile crossed Zeke's face. "Ray was lightning in a bottle. Raw talent like I'd never seen. Everyone wanted a piece of him. My job wasn't just training him, it was protecting him from the vultures." For almost an hour, Zeke detailed his rise from unknown trainer to the architect behind one of boxing's most dominant champions. 7 title defenses, each more impressive than the last. Magazine covers, television appearances, commercial endorsements. The golden age of a partnership that seemed unbeatable. "But it was Damien who really had my heart," Zeke said, his voice softening. "Training my son was different. Harder in some ways, more rewarding in others." Talia pushed a box of tissues across the table as Zeke described Damien's promising career, his technical skill combined with natural instinct. The complicated dynamic of being both father and trainer to a young man eager to create his own legacy. "I begged him not to take that underground match," Zeke said, his voice cracking slightly. "The opponent was too experienced, too dangerous. But Damien was 23, thought he was invincible, needed the money and the recognition." Zeke fell silent, lost in the memory of that night. Talia waited patiently, understanding that some wounds never fully heal. "Third round," he finally continued. "I saw the signs before it happened. Damien's guard dropping, his reaction slowing. I threw in the towel, but the referee was looking. The wrong way. One more combination and Damien went down, never got up. I'm so sorry, Talia said softly. Buried him on a Tuesday, Zeke said. Walked away from boxing on Wednesday. Sold everything I owned by the end of the month. Just started walking and never really stopped until you ended up at Iron King's, Talia finished for him. Zeke nodded. Wasn't planned. Something just pulled me in. Talia hesitated, then carefully laid out the FBI documents she'd uncovered. There's something you should know about Ray Barnes' death. The official report says car accident, but these suggest it might have been connected to match-fixing. A man named Clive Rocco was under investigation. Zeke's expression darkened as he examined the papers. Rocco. He was always hanging around. The edges of the sport. Promoter, investor, always with an angle. He was also Andre's silent partner when Iron King's opened, Talia said quietly, watching Zeke's reaction carefully. A complex mix of emotions crossed Zeke's face. Surprise, anger, and finally, a grim understanding. Maybe there's no such thing as coincidence, he murmured. As Zeke processed this revelation, across town at Iron King's, Maya faced her own turning point. Lucas Dane, a slick promoter in an expensive suit, sat in Andre's office, explaining the opportunity of a lifetime to the young fighter. 6 figures guaranteed, Lucas said smoothly. Plus percentages of gate and pay-per-view. This is the title shot fighters dream about. Maya should have been ecstatic. Instead, she found herself asking, what's the catch? Andre leaned forward, his gold chain catching the light. No catch, just standard contract terms. You train here exclusively. We handle promotion, media, everything. And Zeke? Maya asked. He's been coaching me. Lucas and Andre exchanged glances. Look, we appreciate the old man's contribution, Lucas said carefully. But this is the big leagues. We need an official licensed trainer with current credentials, someone who understands modern boxing, modern media. Zeke Miles trained 7 world champions, Maya countered. 20 years ago, Andre cut in. Things have changed. The commission won't approve him as your cornerman without updated licensing, which would take months. This opportunity is now. Maya stood, anger building inside her. So I'm supposed to just cut him loose, after everything he's taught me? Andre's expression hardened. Be smart, Maya. Opportunities like this don't come twice. You want to throw away your career for some sentimental attachment to a has-been? Maya left without answering, conflicted emotions churning inside her. Outside the office, she found Reese waiting, having overheard the conversation. He's offering. You the Sullivan fight, isn't he? Reese asked. Maya nodded, surprised by Reese's subdued demeanor, a stark contrast to his former cockiness. I'd kill for that opportunity, Reese admitted. Then, unexpectedly, but Andre's not telling you everything. What do you mean? Reese glanced around to ensure they weren't overheard. The Sullivan fight, it's not straight. There are expectations about how it goes down. Maya's blood ran cold. Are you saying it's fixed? Not fixed exactly, Reese hedged. More like choreographed. You go the distance, show heart, but Sullivan takes the decision. You get the payday, the exposure, and a rematch clause. That's not fighting, Maya said, disgust evident in her voice. That's theater. Reese shrugged. That's the business. Why do you think Zeke walked away all those years ago? Later that afternoon, Maya found Zeke at a small park near the gym, shadowboxing in the dappled sunlight. She watched silently as he moved through combinations with fluid grace, decades of muscle memory evident in every motion. Andre offered. Me a title shot, she said when he finished. Zeke nodded, unsurprised. Lucas Dane's promotion. You knew, heard whispers. Zeke sat on a bench, gesturing for Maya to join him. Big opportunity. They don't want you in my corner, Maya said bluntly. Said you're not licensed, not modern enough. Zeke's expression. Remain neutral. And what do you think? I think it's bullshit, Maya replied with unexpected vehemence. But Reese says the fight isn't clean anyway, that they expect me to lose. Glory given too fast is usually paid for later, Zeke said quietly. In this game, there are no shortcuts that don't cost you something important. So what should I do? Maya asked, frustrated by the cryptic response. Zeke studied her thoughtfully. The question isn't what you should do. It's who you want to be. A fighter who stands for something or just another name on a card. As Maya wrestled with this decision, Talia's investigation was gaining momentum. Her initial story about Zeke, titled The Ghost in the Corner, the man who trained a champion, then vanished, had gone viral, bringing national attention to Iron King's gym and its unlikely senior citizen star. What no one expected was who would see it. In a luxurious assisted living facility in Palm Springs, an elderly man with still powerful shoulders leaned forward in his wheelchair, staring at a tablet with tears in his eyes. "My God," he whispered, "Zeke's alive." Meanwhile, in a downtown, high-rise Clive Rocco, now a respected sports management executive with carefully hidden ties to less reputable enterprises, made a different kind of discovery. His assistant laid Talia's article on his desk alongside surveillance photos of Miguel and Talia examining old documents. "They're digging," the assistant said simply. Rocco's expression darkened. "Then we need to bury it deeper." Back at Iron King's, tensions were rising. Maya officially declined Lucas Dane's offer, standing firm in her decision despite Andre's reaction. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life," Andre exploded, slamming his fist on the desk. "This isn't just about you. This affects the whole gym, our reputation, our future deals." Miguel stepped between them, his normally calm demeanor hardened into something more confrontational. "Back off, Andre. It's her career, her choice." "Easy for you to say," Andre shot back. "You're not the one with everything on the line here." The argument escalated until Reese surprisingly intervened. "She's not stupid," he told Andre firmly. "She just won't sell out like we did." Andre froze, his eyes narrowing dangerously. "We'll talk about this later," he said to Reese, his voice low with warning. Turning back to Maya, he added, "You'll regret this. Mark my words." The gym's atmosphere had shifted dramatically since Zeke's exhibition match. What had once been Andre's unquestioned domain was now divided by invisible lines of loyalty. Newer members gravitated toward Zeke, impressed by his techniques and old-school wisdom. Established fighters, including some of Reese's former entourage, began asking Miguel about training separately from Andre's programs. The divide became physical as well as philosophical. Zeke began holding unofficial training sessions in an abandoned warehouse 3 blocks from Iron King's. At first it was just Maya and surprisingly Reese. Soon word spread. Underdogs from other gyms started showing up, drawn by rumors of the legendary trainer's resurrection. While researching the history of Iron Kings for her expanding story, Talia made a disturbing discovery. Lucas Dane, the promoter pushing for Maya's title fight, wasn't just another boxing businessman. His company's financial records, accessible through public filings, showed complex connections to shell corporations that ultimately linked back to Clive Rocco's organization. "He's laundering Rocco's money," Talia explained to Miguel over coffee, "using legitimate fights as cover for moving funds from less legitimate enterprises." "And fixing outcomes to guarantee returns," Miguel added grimly. "This goes deeper than I thought." Their investigation didn't go unnoticed. The next morning, Miguel found his car vandalized, windows smashed, a single boxing glove left on the driver's seat with a note, "Stay in your lane." Rather than intimidating him, the threat only strengthened Miguel's resolve. That afternoon, he began quietly moving equipment out of Iron King's, preparing for a more permanent break. At the warehouse, Zeke's training philosophy was taking root. His methods were unorthodox by modern standards, focusing on fundamentals, energy conservation, and psychological warfare rather than pure athleticism or punching power. Boxing isn't about who's strongest, he told his growing group of students. It's about who can think clearly when strength starts to fail. Maya thrived under this approach. Zeke taught her a brutal, old-school defensive strategy, nicknamed the shell, passed down from military boxing traditions. It involved subtle body positioning, precise head movement, and the disciplined conservation of energy that had once made Ray Barnes nearly untouchable in the ring. "My son never mastered this," Zeke told her privately during one session. "Too aggressive, too eager to impress. Learn to protect yourself first, and the opportunities to attack will multiply." Reese, surprisingly, became Maya's most dedicated training partner. The humbling experience of the exhibition match had transformed him. The social media showboating disappeared, replaced by genuine dedication to improvement. He challenged Maya daily, pushing her limits while simultaneously discovering his own. "You two remind me of someone," Zeke commented one evening as they sparred. He didn't elaborate, but his eyes held a mixture of pride and remembered pain that suggested he was seeing ghosts from his past. Perhaps Ray and Damien, reincarnated in these new, hungry fighters. As word of Zeke's warehouse session spread, Andre made one final attempt to bring the situation under control. He approached Zeke after hours, finding him alone, wrapping his hands for a solitary training session. "You know, there's no reason for all this drama," Andre said with forced casualness. "We could be partners. Iron Kings could use a name like yours officially associated with the brand." Zeke continued rapping, saying nothing. "I'm talking real. Money," Andre pressed. "Recognition. A cut of Maya's future purses. Hell, we could even start a Zeke Miles Boxing Academy under our umbrella." Zeke finally looked up, his eyes clear and unimpressed. "Why now?" "Because you've proven your value," Andre replied smoothly. "The boxing world respects you. We could leverage that." "Leverage," Zeke repeated, the word hanging between them like an accusation. "That's always been the problem with this business. Everyone looking for an angle." Andre's friendly facade cracked slightly. "Don't be naive. This is how the world works. You play the game, or you get played." "I'd rather die broke than bow to liars," Zeke said quietly. Andre's expression hardened. "You don't understand what you're walking away from, or what you're walking into." "I understand exactly who I'm dealing with," Zeke replied, his gaze steady. "Question is, do you?" The split became official a week later. Miguel resigned as head trainer at Iron Kings, taking several fighters with him. Andre, leveraging his business connections, quickly replaced them with flashier names, shifting the gym's focus toward entertainment and social media presence rather than traditional boxing excellence. Meanwhile, in the warehouse space that Miguel had begun renovating, a different kind of boxing community was taking shape. Old-school equipment replaced digital training aids. Fundamentals trumped flash. The work was harder, the progress slower, but somehow more satisfying. Zeke moved through this new space like a man reborn, his step lighter, his rare smiles more frequent. For the first time in decades, he was fully engaged with the sport he had once defined and then abandoned. The weight of the past remained, but it no longer paralyzed him. The first official test of this new approach came when Maya's fight was rebooked at a small but nationally streamed venue. Without Lucas Dane's promotion, the purse was smaller, the opponent less prestigious, but the fight was honest, without hidden expectations or choreographed outcomes. Complications arose immediately. The local boxing commission, influenced by Andre's connections, insisted that Zeke couldn't be licensed as Maya's official cornerman in time for the bout. The promoter, unwilling to risk his relationship with the commission, regretfully informed them that Andre would need to be listed as trainer of record. This is bullshit, Maya fumed in the warehouse after receiving the news. Everyone knows you're my trainer. Politics, Zeke replied calmly. Been part of boxing since the beginning. We'll work around it. Together with Miguel, they developed a system of coded hand signals and pre-agreed tactics that would allow Zeke to communicate with Maya even from the audience. Miguel would serve as her official cornerman, translating Zeke's guidance between rounds. It's not ideal, Miguel admitted, but it keeps us in the game while we fight the bigger battle. As fight night approached, Reese uncovered a final, troubling detail. Through his connections with other fighters, he learned that Maya's opponent, Carla, the Butcher Velez, had been approached by Lucas Dane's organization. They offered her money to throw the fight, Reese reported during an emergency meeting at the warehouse. But there's a twist. She's supposed to make it look good unless Maya starts winning too convincingly. Then she's supposed to go all out. A trap, Zeke concluded. If Maya follows our game plan and starts dominating, Carla unleashes everything. If Maya struggles, Carla takes a dive, making it look like Maya's win was manufactured. Either way, they discredit her, Miguel added grimly, and by extension discredit us. So what do? Maya asked, the pressure of the situation evident in her voice. Zeke considered for a moment, then nodded decisively. We change the game. If they want to play chess, we'll play poker instead. The night of the fight arrived, the small venue packed beyond capacity. Zeke was indeed barred from the locker room and corner, forced to watch from the general admission section at the back of the arena. From this distance, he could only communicate through the subtle signals they'd practiced. A hand raised to adjust defense, a finger tapping to change rhythm, a nod to confirm Maya was on the right track. The first round was brutal. Carla came out aggressive, clearly not following any script, testing Maya with heavy combinations and relentless pressure. Maya, caught off guard by the intensity, struggled to implement her game plan. Something's wrong, Miguel muttered between rounds, glancing toward Zeke in the crowd. This isn't what we expected. From his position, Zeke made a subtle gesture. Patience, adapt, survive. In the second round, Maya recovered her composure. She implemented the shell defense, making herself a frustratingly elusive target. Carla's aggression began working against her as she expended energy on punches that found only air or gloves. From the audience, Zeke gave almost imperceptible nods of approval. Miguel, catching these signals, translated them into specific technical advice between rounds. She's loading up too much on the right. Use that dip and pivot we practiced. Create angles. By the third and fourth rounds, the crowd realized they were watching something special. Maya wasn't just surviving. She was implementing a masterclass in defensive boxing that frustrated her increasingly desperate opponent. Commentators began remarking on the old-school style, reminiscent of fighters from decades past. In the VIP section, Lucas Dane watched with growing concern, Andre beside him. This isn't going as planned, Lucas muttered. Carla's getting outclassed. She's using Miles' techniques, Andre replied, his expression dark. Look at the defensive shell, the counter-timing. That's pure Zeke. Pull her now, Lucas ordered. Tell her to end this before it gets worse. Andre made a call to Carla's trainer, but it was too late. The fight had developed its own momentum, beyond their ability to control. In the final round, frustration got the better of Carla. She threw a desperate, illegal elbow that caught Maya on the temple. The crowd gasped as Maya stumbled, momentarily dazed. The referee issued a warning, but didn't deduct a point. For a dangerous moment, it seemed the fight might slip away. Then Maya's eyes found Zeke in the crowd. His expression was calm, confident, a silent reminder of everything they'd worked toward. Maya recovered, reset her stance, and launched the 5-punch combination they'd drilled hundreds of times in the warehouse. Left jab, right to the body. Left hook, feint, straight right. Each punch flowed into the next with perfect timing, the final right hand catching Carla flush on the chin as she attempted to counter. Carla dropped to her knees, the crowd erupting as the referee began his count. Though she beat the count at 8, the fight's outcome was no longer in doubt. Maia controlled the final minute with the poise of a veteran, securing a victory that no one could claim was anything but earned. As the decision was announced, unanimous for Maia, media swarmed the ring. Reporters thrust microphones in her face, asking about her stunning performance and future plans. Maia ignored them all, pointing instead to the back of the arena. "He's my coach!" she called out, her voice carrying above the crowd noise. "Ezekiel, Miles, he's the reason I won tonight." The cameras swiveled, finding Zeke standing quietly in the general admission section. For the first time since his return to the boxing world, he didn't shy away from the attention. Instead, he nodded, a rare tear forming in the corner of his eye, not for the victory itself, but for the public acknowledgement of a legacy he had thought forever lost. As the crowd chanted his name, Zeke realized that something fundamental had shifted. The past would always be there, with its triumphs and tragedies. But perhaps, just perhaps, there could be a future as well. Maia's victory over Carla the Butcher Velez catapulted her from local curiosity to legitimate boxing prospect overnight. Sports websites that had initially covered her story as a human interest piece, the young female fighter mentored by a rediscovered legend, now analyzed her technique with serious consideration. Boxing insiders noted the distinctive style, economical movement, perfect defensive positioning, precisely timed counters. The hallmarks of Ezekiel Miles. 3 weeks after the fight, Maia received an unexpected call. A major promotion wanted her for their upcoming card, not as an undercard novelty, but as the co-main event. The opponent, Jasmine Sullivan, the current lightweight champion. It was the same opportunity Andre and Lucas had dangled before, but now offered through legitimate channels with no strings attached. There was, however, one significant condition. "They're insisting Andre be in your corner," Miguel explained during a meeting at their warehouse gym, which they'd officially named Second Round, since he's still technically your trainer of record with the commission. "That's ridiculous," Maia protested. "Everyone knows Zeke trains me." "Politics and paperwork," Zeke said with a resigned shrug. "Been this way forever." Talia, who had been documenting their journey for what had evolved from an article into a book project, offered a solution. "What if we accelerate Zeke's licensing? I've made some contacts covering this story. People who could push it through before the fight." "Too risky," Miguel countered. "Andre has too many friends in the commission. They'd find a reason to delay or deny it." "Then we work with what we have," Zeke decided. Just like last time. They developed an elaborate system, hand signals, coded phrases, pre-planned strategies for every possible scenario. Miguel would relay Zeke's instructions from the audience to Maia between rounds. It wasn't ideal, but it would have to suffice. What they didn't anticipate was the promotion's insistence on a major venue, a downtown arena with strict security protocols that would make their informal communication system nearly impossible. Zeke would be relegated to the general admissions section, too far away for effective signaling. The night before Maia was scheduled to sign the contract, Reese appeared at the warehouse with troubling news. "I've been doing some digging," he said, glancing around to ensure they weren't overheard. "The Sullivan fight, it's not what you think." "What do you mean?" Maia asked, tensing immediately. "It's not about boxing anymore," Reese explained. "It's about silencing you, all of you. Andre's been talking to Rocco. They're scared of what Talia might publish about their operation. So they're using the fight as leverage," Miguel concluded grimly. Reese nodded. "The plan is to make sure you lose badly. Sullivan knows the deal. She's going to come at you with everything, no holding back. They want to discredit you, discredit Zeke's methods, make it look like your win against Velez was a fluke. "Why are you telling us this?" Talia asked, suspicion evident in her voice. "You were Andre's golden boy not long ago." Reese looked down, genuine shame crossing his features. "Because I was part of it before. 3 of my early pro fights, all arranged. I didn't know at first, then didn't want to know. Kept telling myself it was just how the business worked." He looked up, meeting Zeke's eyes. "But that's not fighting. That's just theater, like Maya said." A heavy silence fell over the group, as they considered their options. "We could walk away," Miguel suggested. "Find another promotion, build Maya's record properly, and let them keep controlling the narrative." Talia shook her head. "They'd just find someone else to exploit." "Besides," Maya added with quiet determination, "running away won't solve anything. Sooner or later, we'd face the same problem." All eyes turned to Zeke, who had remained silent throughout the exchange. The old trainer studied Maya thoughtfully, measuring her resolve against the challenge ahead. "What do you want to do?" he asked her simply. Maya straightened, her decision already made. "I want to fight, on my terms, win or lose. I want it to be real." Zeke nodded, a hint of pride in his eyes. "Then we prepare like never before." The following weeks were the most intense of Maya's career. Zeke pushed her beyond what she thought possible, refining every aspect of her technique. They studied Sullivan's fighting style obsessively, identifying patterns, weaknesses, tendencies under pressure. Reese served as her primary sparring partner, mimicking Sullivan's aggressive style while adding his own insights from years of training. Meanwhile, Miguel handled the business side, negotiating contract details that would minimize Andre's influence. Talia continued her investigation, gathering evidence of the match-fixing operation that had corrupted local boxing for years. The fight was scheduled for a Saturday night in June. The promotional machine went into overdrive. Billboards, television spots, social media campaigns. Sullivan versus Johnson, champion versus contender. Andre featured prominently in the marketing, positioned as the mastermind behind Maya's rise. Zeke was notably absent from all official materials. On the morning of the fight, Zeke visited Damien's grave, as he had before his own match with Reese. This time, he brought Maya with him. "I never got to see him fulfill his potential," Zeke said, quietly, as they stood before the simple headstone. "That was the hardest part, knowing what could have been." Maya remained respectfully silent, understanding the weight of the moment. "Whatever happens tonight," Zeke continued, "remember that winning isn't everything. How you fight, that's what defines you." That evening, the arena buzzed with anticipation. Celebrities and boxing royalty filled the front rows. Television cameras positioned for the national broadcast. Security was tight, with credentials checked at every access point, making it impossible for Zeke to get anywhere near the fighters' area. In the locker room, Maya prepared methodically, Reese helping with her raps while Miguel reviewed final strategy notes. Andre arrived late, already playing to the cameras that followed him. "Ready for your big moment?" he asked with manufactured enthusiasm, clapping Maya on the shoulder. She said nothing, focusing on her mental preparation. "Look," Andre continued, lowering his voice, "whatever beef we have, tonight we're on the same team. Let's put on a great show." "I'm not here to put on a show," Maya replied coldly. "I'm here to fight." Andre's smile tightened. "Just remember who got you this opportunity." "I remember exactly who got me here," Maya said, her eyes meeting his steadily. The tension was broken by an official announcing it was time for the walkout. Maya stood, rolled her shoulders, and took a deep breath. Whatever happened next, there would be no turning back. The arena erupted as Maya made her entrance, the underdog status earning her surprising support from the crowd. Sullivan followed moments later, confident and imposing, her championship belt held high. In her corner, a team of elite trainers and specialists prepared for what they clearly expected to be a routine defense. As Maya took her place in the ring, she scanned the crowd, finally locating Zeke in the back row. He was too far for specific signals, but his presence alone provided comfort. He nodded once, a gesture that conveyed everything she needed to know. Trust your training. Trust yourself. The referee called them to center ring for instructions. Sullivan towered over Maya, using her height advantage to project intimidation. Up close, Maya could see the champion's eyes, cold, calculating, professional. This wasn't personal for Sullivan. It was simply business. They touched gloves, returned to their corners, and waited for the bell. Miguel gave Maya final instructions, with Andre adding unnecessary comments beside him. Maya tuned them both out, centering herself, remembering Zeke's words. How you fight defines you. The bell rang. Sullivan charged forward immediately, unleashing a barrage of power punches meant to end the fight early. The crowd roared as Maya was driven back against the ropes, covering up against the onslaught. In her corner, Andre smirked, already seeing the outcome he'd been promised. What no one except Zeke recognized was that Maya was implementing the shell, absorbing the initial storm while gathering valuable information about Sullivan's timing and patterns. By the end of the first round, Sullivan had thrown dozens of punches, but landed few clean shots. She returned to her corner breathing heavily, already frustrated by Maya's elusive defense. "She's overwhelming you," Andre said between rounds loud. "Enough for nearby cameras to pick up. You need to throw more punches." Miguel, following the plan they'd developed with Zeke, ignored him. "Keep reading her," he whispered. "She's loading up, telegraphing the right hand. Counter after the third punch in her combination." The second round saw a subtle shift. Maya began timing Sullivan perfectly, slipping punches by millimeters and countering with precise shots that caught the champion off guard. The crowd's energy transformed as they realized this wasn't going to be the mismatch many had predicted. By the third and fourth rounds, commentators were openly discussing the surprising technical battle unfolding. "Johnson is showing remarkable poise for a relative newcomer," one observed. "That defensive shell is reminiscent of old-school fighters, very effective against Sullivan's power-punching style." In the VIP booth, Lucas Dane watched with mounting concern. "This isn't going according to plan," he muttered to his associate. "Sullivan was supposed to dominate." "She's trying," the associate replied. "The girl's better than we thought." Sullivan's frustration became increasingly evident as the middle rounds progressed. She had expected an easy night's work, but found herself in a chess match against an opponent who seemed to anticipate her every move. Her trainer urged more aggression between rounds, pushing her to break through Maya's defense with sheer power and volume. In Maya's corner, tension grew between Miguel and Andre. "She needs to be more aggressive," Andre insisted, playing to the cameras. "She's letting Sullivan dictate the pace." "She's following the game plan perfectly," Miguel countered. "Sullivan's tiring herself out." As the championship rounds approached, Sullivan's team grew desperate. During the break before round 10, her head trainer whispered something that caused Sullivan to nod grimly. When the bell rang, she came out with reckless abandon, throwing caution to the wind in search of a knockout. The change in tactics momentarily caught Maya off guard. A wild overhand, right connected partially, sending her stumbling backward. Sullivan pressed the advantage, launching a flurry of punches that forced Maya to cover up against the ropes. The crowd rose to their feet, sensing a potential turning point. In the back row, Zeke watched calmly, trusting in Maya's preparation. Even from this distance, he could see she wasn't hurt, just momentarily overwhelmed by the champion's desperation. As Sullivan continued her assault, she grew increasingly reckless. In her eagerness to finish the fight, she threw a vicious elbow during a clinch, clearly intentional, clearly illegal. It caught Maya on the temple, opening a small cut and momentarily dazing her. The referee stepped in, issuing a stern warning but no point deduction. The partisan crowd booed the dirty tactic, Blood trickled down Maya's face as she regained her composure during the brief pause. In that critical moment, her eyes found Zeke in the crowd. 20 rows separated them, but the connection was immediate and profound. His expression conveyed everything she needed: calm confidence, unwavering belief. When action resumed, something had changed in Maya. The defensive shell gave way to controlled aggression. She stepped forward, no longer content to counter, now dictating the exchanges. Sullivan, who had expended tremendous energy in her failed attempt to end the fight, found herself retreating for the first time. Maya launched the 5-punch combination. They had drilled endlessly: jab, body shot, hook, feint, straight right. Each punch flowed into the next with perfect precision, the culmination of countless hours in the warehouse. The final right hand caught Sullivan flush as she attempted to counter, sending her mouthguard flying and her legs buckling. The arena erupted as Sullivan stumbled backward, desperately grabbing the ropes to remain upright. For a breathless moment, it seemed the champion might go down. Though Sullivan survived, the dynamic of the fight had irrevocably shifted. Maya pressed her advantage through the final round, her technique crisp even as fatigue set in for both fighters. When the final bell rang, the crowd gave both women a standing ovation. Maya raised her hands, not in certain victory, but in the knowledge that she had fought on her terms, without compromise. The judges' scorecards were announced: 115, 1-13, 114, 114, 115, 113. A majority decision for Maya Johnson. The arena erupted in celebration as Maya became the new champion against all odds and expectations. As media swarmed the ring, Maya ignored the microphones thrust toward her. Instead, she pointed into the crowd, directly at Zeke. "He's my coach," she shouted above the noise. "Ezekiel Miles is my coach." Television cameras swung toward the back row, finding Zeke standing quietly, tears forming in his eyes. After decades in self-imposed exile, his legacy had found new life in the most unexpected way. In the midst of celebration, few noticed Andre slipping away, his phone pressed to his ear, his expression dark with the knowledge that the carefully constructed narrative had unraveled completely. The aftermath of Maya's championship victory unfolded rapidly. Talia's comprehensive investigation, bolstered by evidence from Reese and corroborated by financial records, led to a formal police investigation into Lucas Dane's promotion company and its connections to Clive Rocco's broader criminal enterprises. Within weeks, both Andre and Lucas were facing charges of fraud, money laundering, and sports corruption. Iron King's gym closed its doors, its reputation tarnished beyond repair. The building stood empty for months, a visual reminder of how easily the sport could be corrupted when profit took precedence over principle. 3 blocks away, the warehouse that had served as their temporary training space underwent a dramatic transformation. Miguel and Zeke, using Maya's championship earnings as seed money, renovated the building into a proper boxing gym. They named it Damien's Corner, focusing on ethical training and mentoring inner-city youth who might otherwise lack direction, much as boxing had once provided structure for a young Zeke returning from Vietnam. The gym's opening drew significant media attention, with Zeke reluctantly stepping into the spotlight as its spiritual center. His licensing issues were resolved with surprising speed now that Andre's influence had been removed. The Boxing Commission, eager to distance itself from the scandal, suddenly found ways to accommodate the legendary trainer's return. At Maya's insistence, her first title defense was scheduled at a venue near Damien's Corner, with proceeds benefiting youth boxing programs throughout the city. Zeke, now officially her trainer of record, would be in her corner for the first time in an official capacity. Meanwhile, Reese found himself at a crossroads. His social media following had actually grown after his association with the scandal became public, many appreciating his eventual stand against corruption. Influencer deals and exhibition opportunities flooded his inbox, offering substantial paydays for minimal effort. To everyone's surprise, he turned them all down. Instead, Reese began coaching kids at Damien's Corner, finding unexpected fulfillment in passing on what he'd learned from Zeke. His technical knowledge, combined with a newly developed patience, made him a natural teacher. "Never thought I'd say this," he confessed to Maya during a quiet moment at the gym, "but I think I'm better at teaching than fighting." "Zeke says that's how it started for him too," Maya replied with a smile. Talia's documentation of the entire journey resulted in a best-selling book, The Ghost Coach, How Ezekiel Miles Vanished from Boxing and Returned to Save Its Soul. Despite the commercial success, Zeke refused most interview requests and declined book tour opportunities. His only concession was signing a single copy, which he placed carefully at Damien's grave during a private visit. "Not sure if you can see all this," he said to the headstone, "but I think you'd be proud. Not of me, took me too long to find my way back, but of what we're building now, the right way." As Damien's Corner established itself as a legitimate training center, Zeke began receiving letters from fighters he'd worked with decades earlier. Most expressed gratitude for his influence during their careers. One, from a former middleweight contender long thought to have died of addiction issues, particularly moved him. "You walked away after tragedy, and I understood why," the letter read. "I nearly followed the same path. Thank you for saving me before I lost myself too. Seeing you back in the corner gives an old fighter hope." The gym quickly became more than just a training facility. It transformed into a community center, a safe haven for kids with limited options. Zeke instituted a mandatory tutoring program alongside boxing training, insisting that education took precedence over athletic development. "Boxing won't last forever," he told his young charges. "What's up here?" He tapped his temple. "That's what carries you through life." Maya's career flourished under Zeke's official guidance. Her distinctive style, technical, disciplined, efficient, earned her respect throughout the boxing world. During post-fight interviews, she never failed to credit Zeke's influence, repeatedly telling reporters, "He taught me how to fight without becoming the enemy." 6 months after Damien's Corner opened, Zeke arrived early one morning to find the gym already occupied. A class of children, none older than 12, were mimicking his footwork drills under Reese's supervision. They moved with comical seriousness, their faces scrunched in concentration as they practiced the fundamentals he had been teaching for decades. Zeke stood in the doorway, unnoticed, a smile softening his weathered features. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of the past lifting, not gone completely, but balanced by something new: hope, purpose, future. Later that same day, after the gym had emptied for the evening, Zeke remained alone in the ring. The space was quiet, except for the rhythmic sound of his breathing as he shadow-boxed softly in the dimness. His movements were unhurried, each punch and pivot flowing into the next with the grace that came from decades of practice. As he completed a combination, a single tear rolled down his cheek, not from sorrow this time, but from a complex mixture of gratitude and acceptance. The journey that had begun with mockery and disrespect had led him back to his true calling. The Invisible Man had become a mentor, a guide, a living connection between boxing's past and its future. Zeke paused in the center of the ring, his breath visible in the cool air. Then, in a gesture that would have been unthinkable months earlier, he smiled, a genuine, unguarded expression of peace, and bowed slightly to an invisible opponent, not in defeat, but in acknowledgement of the eternal cycle of teaching and learning, of falling and rising, of loss and redemption. Outside, dawn was breaking over the city, golden light filtering through the gym's windows. A new day, a fresh start, and for Ezekiel Miles, finally, a sense of coming home. Have you ever wondered what legacies lie hidden in the people we so easily dismiss? If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of redemption, respect, and second chances that will make you think twice about who deserves your attention.